going to show you how to make these simple book spines for your cakes. To start, I have Tylose powder mixed into all of my fondant. I only use marshmallow fondant. This Tylose powder is going to help your fondant be more stretchy and it's going to hold its shape. I will link this in the description. So I measured my cake to see how tall it was to make sure I rolled this fondant out tall enough. And you can see how thick it is. It's about 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch thick. And I have my ribbon cutter here and I measured the circumference of my cake and that was about 27 inches or so. So I need to make sure that I have enough to cover the circumference of the cake. I have my ribbon cutter and I'm going to cut a bunch of these little strips out in all of these colors in a bunch of different sizes. And once I have all of them cut out, I cut a straight edge on the bottom and then I'm just taking my Dresden tool and just marking a bunch of different horizontal lines. I'm varying the length and the position of all of these, just going all the way down the spine. So I'm just doing this in a bunch of the different colors, the horizontal lines, and you can see I'm coming in from the edge into the middle. So I flipped the Dresden tool just so I'm coming in from the edge. Anyway, I had this strip cutter here. I rolled some fondant out really thin so I could get these strips, and I just bang it on the countertop to release it. I'm getting a little bit of water behind it, and I'm putting them down. There's no rhyme or reason. You just try to find a certain pattern that you want to do. And this one I did 2 towards the top and have a big space in the middle and then 2 towards the bottom. And I take my spatula and make sure they are all even and then trim the edges off with my X-Acto knife. And I'm doing that in a bunch of different colors. So I'm going to have that thin green fondant and I'm using my strip cutter to get those thin strips of fondant. And this time I decided to do only 3 strips on this one. So I try not to make them all look alike. I like to have a little bit of variation and I'm trimming off the edges, and I just did those little details for all of these pieces. And now I have some dust. So I have black dust and brown dust. I decided to use the brown dust on the yellow and on the red so it didn't look too harsh. And I just am getting my paintbrush in the dust. I tap it into the lid and then tap the brush on the paper towel just to remove any excess so I don't have too much color on here. And I'm just trying to fill in these lines that I made and go around those little strips that I did. And just remember, you can always add more dust. You can't take it away. So just be really careful when you are coloring these in. So again, I did the brown on the red and then I decided to do the black dust on all the other colors, the gray, the blue, the green, and I am just finishing dusting all of these pieces. And here is what it looks like. Look how cool they look. Now I got my cake out of the refrigerator. I have a little bit of water. I'm cutting a straight edge on the bottom. Let's hold it up against the cake and see where I need to trim it at the top. So I'm cutting it off the top and it's still a little too long. So I'm just making sure that I trim these to the correct size. Hold it up against the cake. That's the perfect size. I'm getting a little bit of water behind it and I'm going to stick it to the cake. Now I try not to make the same color touch, so I do a little variation. Hold it up against the cake, take my scissors, mark where it needs to be cut, and I'm cutting a straight line, hold it up, and that still needed a little bit more trimmed off. And then I hold it up again to make sure it's the right size, get some water behind it, and stick these down. So I'm just doing the same thing around the entire cake. I'm going to take my spatula, making sure that it is perfectly vertical, and then I'm going to take the other pieces and do the same process, trimming it, holding it up against the cake, making sure that it fits. That one was still a little bit too long, and then getting water behind it and sticking it to the cake. Then I got to the back and that piece was a little bit too wide, so I got my pizza cutter and I am just trimming it so it's a little more narrow and it'll fit in that space. And now that looks pretty good. Get some water behind it and stick that down. And look at this, how simple was this to do? And it looks so cool. I hope you loved seeing how easy and fun it is to make these book spines out of fondant. They really bring a unique and charming look to your cakes.